Ever catch yourself daydreaming about a career that doesn't involve a desk? One where you're the hero when the furnace goes out on the coldest day of the year.
Yeah, like you're some kind of heating superhero.
Exactly. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into the world of heating technicians, and from the sounds of it, you've been doing your homework.
Just a bit.
We're looking at materials from RoleCatcher. They're a career development platform, and they have some really interesting takes on what this line of work is really like.
Yeah, what I found interesting about RoleCatcher is that they don't just give you the typical job description. They get into what it really takes to make it as a heating technician these days.
Right, because it's way more complex than it used to be.
Definitely.
Okay, so we all know heating technicians work on heating systems. That's a given. But the stuff from RoleCatcher gets surprisingly detailed.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, they're talking about all these different types of systems: gas, electric, oil,
Wow.
even how to integrate them with machinery, so it's not just your grandma's thermostat anymore.
Right. And that's something I think anyone thinking about this career path should really consider, that variety. The different settings, the different systems. It's not just residential, it's industrial. You could be
Yeah.
working in a huge building or a factory.
That's a really good point, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. And while we're on the topic of busting myths, RoleCatcher is very upfront about the fact that this is physically demanding work.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about muscle, right?
Mhm.
They really highlight the problem solving, the need to always be learning about new technologies.
Totally. I mean, the industry is changing so fast, there's always something new coming out. So if you like to keep learning and you're not afraid of a little technical challenge, this could be a great fit.
And here's something I bet you didn't expect: customer service.
Really?
Yeah, they actually talk about how important communication and people skills are, especially when you're dealing directly with homeowners or clients.
Well, when you think about it, it makes sense. You're the one who shows up and saves the day when the heat's out. You're not just fixing a machine, you're bringing comfort back. That takes empathy. You've got to know how to explain things clearly so people understand what's going on.
And here's where things get really interesting, because now we're getting into something that's becoming relevant in just about every field: artificial intelligence. RoleCatcher talks about how AI is being used more and more in the hiring process, even for heating technicians.
Seriously. That's wild. So how do you even stand out to a computer program?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's not just about having the right qualifications on paper anymore. It's about understanding how your skills are being measured and presented digitally.
So it's like you've got to impress the algorithm now, too.
In a way, yes. But the good news is RoleCatcher gives some really good advice on how to deal with this whole AI-driven hiring thing.
Okay, I'm all ears.
For example, they talk about tailoring your resume to match the specific wording used in the job description.
So like you're speaking the algorithm's language.
Exactly. And they even have AI-powered tools that can help you do that, which I think is pretty game-changing for anyone looking for a job these days.
That's pretty cool. So it's like AI can actually help you get a job where you might end up working with AI.
Exactly. Okay, so let's say you're thinking, all right, this might be the path for me. RoleCatcher breaks down a heating technician's career into different stages. You've got entry-level, junior technician, and senior technician. They even give you these example profiles so you can see what to expect at each level.
Which is super helpful because it makes it all seem much more real. Saying, yeah, you start as a junior tech and work your way up is one thing, but actually seeing examples of what you'd be doing, the skills you need, that's really useful.
For sure. So let's start with the entry-level heating technician. According to RoleCatcher, you'd be assisting the more experienced technicians, getting hands-on experience with all the different systems, really mastering those core skills, things like reading blueprints, stuff like that. It's all about building that solid foundation.
It's like an apprenticeship. You're learning the ropes, hopefully not making too many big mistakes, and getting those core skills that you'll use throughout your career. And it's more than just knowing which wrench to use. It's really understanding how these systems work on a fundamental level.
And then you move up to junior heating technician. Now you're getting more responsibility, maybe doing some installations or maintenance stuff on your own. You'll probably be doing routine inspections, safety checks, things like that, but still learning from the more seasoned pros.
Yeah, the example profile for this stage really focuses on problem solving. It's not just following instructions anymore. You're having to figure things out on your own, which takes a whole different way of thinking.
Exactly. And then you've put in the time, you've honed your skills, you're ready for the next level. So what does a senior heating technician do?
Well, at that point, you're not just fixing things. You're leading teams, you're mentoring the junior technicians. You might even be helping to shape how the company does things. That's where leadership in a deep, deep understanding of the work really come into play.
It's like the natural progression of any career.
Right.
You learn the basics, then you branch out on your own, and then eventually you become the expert, the one who guides everyone else. And for people who are really ambitious, RoleCatcher talks about how there are even more paths open to you as a senior heating technician.
No, totally. You could go the classic route, work your way up in a company, become a supervisor or a manager.
Right.
Or if you're more the entrepreneurial type, you could start your own business.
There's something really cool about that.
Yeah.
Being your own boss, setting your own hours, maybe even building something you could pass on someday.
Yeah, definitely.
And RoleCatcher even mentions how specializing can be a smart move, especially now with energy-efficient heating and stuff like that becoming more and more in demand.
Right, because if you become the go-to expert in a specialized area, suddenly you're incredibly valuable.
Exactly, whether you're working for someone or for yourself. Okay, so we've talked about all the different types of systems, the skills you need, how your career could progress, but before anyone listening runs out and signs up for HVAC school tomorrow, RoleCatcher doesn't just talk about the good stuff.
Right. They get into the challenges too.
Yeah, and some of them might surprise people.
Yeah, like what?
Well, one that stood out to me was seasonality. It makes sense when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
When it's freezing outside, that's when everyone needs their heater working.
Right.
So that can mean long hours, being on call.
Definitely.
It's not like you can just clock out at 5 p.m. and forget about it until the next day.
Especially not during the peak season.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, there might be times when things are slower. Like during those milder months, you might not have as much work.
Yeah, that could be tough if you're not prepared for it.
Right. It could really impact your income. And we can't forget about the physical side of things.
Oh, absolutely not.
This is a demanding job, physically. You're working in tight spaces sometimes. You're lifting heavy equipment. There might even be hazardous materials.
Yeah, no doubt. This is not your average desk job.
Not at all. But I think for people who like that kind of hands-on work,
Yeah.
that's part of the appeal.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing quite like figuring out what's wrong, fixing it, and knowing that you've made someone's home warmer or helped a business keep running smoothly. That's got to feel good.
Yeah, for sure. So for the folks out there who are thinking, all right, this sounds like me, this is something I could see myself doing, RoleCatcher has some really great advice on how to stand out.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
And it's not just about experience. They're big on certifications.
Ah, yeah, those are important.
Yeah, they really emphasize that. They specifically talk about the EPA Universal Certification, Certified Heating Technician, that's CHT, and then Certified Residential Technician, CRT. They say those are really valuable in this field.
Good to know.
It's kind of like leveling up in a video game. Every time you get a certification, it's like you've added this whole other layer to your profile.
It makes you more credible.
Exactly. And it makes you stand out from everyone else who doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate that they talk about networking, like going to industry events, joining those professional organizations, because sometimes it really is about who you know.
Oh, 100%. Networking is huge no matter what you do, but I think it's especially true in a trade like this.
Yeah.
It's a chance to meet the more experienced folks, hear about job openings, maybe that aren't even advertised. Plus, you can stay updated on what's new in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, we've spent a good chunk of time diving into this whole career path, thanks to RoleCatcher and all their research and insights. So I think the big question for anyone listening is this the right career for you?
Yeah, that's a question only you can answer. We've looked at what it's really like day to day, the skills you need, the challenges, the rewards.
Right.
But ultimately, it comes down to you. What are you interested in? What are you good at? What do you want out of your career?
Those are the important questions. But one thing's for sure, we've learned there's a lot more to being a heating technician than meets the eye. But before we send everyone off to go research HVAC training programs, let's talk about RoleCatcher for a sec. We based this whole deep dive on their material, so would you say it's actually worth checking out their platform?
Based on what I've seen, yeah, I think so, especially if you're really serious about this line of work.
Okay.
Those AI-powered tools they were talking about, the resume thing, the interview prep, they even have stuff that can help you figure out if you have any skills gaps. That could be really valuable.
Totally. It's almost like having a career coach right in your pocket.
Right.
And they have that whole library of career guides, plus databases of different employers, so if you want to research different heating technician jobs or even different companies you might want to work for.
Yeah, it's definitely a good resource to have.
It sounds like it. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of heating technicians, let's leave everyone with one final thought-provoking question. You know, it's funny, we've talked a lot about all the technical stuff you need to know to be a heating technician.
Right, which is obviously super important.
Absolutely. But when you think about what RoleCatcher said about AI being used more and more in hiring, it kind of makes you wonder if those soft skills,
Like what?
communication, problem solving, being able to adapt to new situations, those more human skills, could those actually become even more important for heating technicians in the future?
Huh. That's really interesting. You might be onto something there. Because as AI starts to handle more of those routine things, it could be those human skills that really set people apart.
Right. Think about it. AI might be able to tell you there's a problem with a furnace.
Maybe even diagnose it remotely?
Exactly. But it's still got to be a human being who shows up and explains that problem to the homeowner,
Right.
right? Who talks them through the options and makes sure they feel heard, understood. You can't really automate that human touch.
Nope. And adaptability, too. I mean, this field is always changing. New technology all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So
Constant.
being able to learn new things fast, troubleshoot on the fly, not be afraid to try new approaches, those are going to be valuable skills no matter what, even with all the AI in the world.
It makes you think, really. I feel like it's true for a lot of careers now. The really technical skills are important, but
Like the bare minimum.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then it's that human element, being able to communicate clearly, solve problems in creative ways, being open to change. Those are the things that make someone really stand out.
Because, technology is always evolving, but people are people, you know?
Right.
And the more we're interacting with machines, the more important those human skills become.
Totally. So for anyone out there who's thinking about a career as a heating technician, my advice is
Don't neglect the soft skills.
exactly. Learn everything you can about how those systems work, get those certifications, but also work on those human skills. It can make all the difference.
Absolutely. Might just be the key to a long and successful career. And, a rewarding one, too, because you're really making a difference in people's lives.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of heating technicians. We've covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully, this has given everyone a better sense of what this career path is really about, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
And remember, the more you know, the better choices you can make. So if you're serious about this, do your research.
Exactly. And hey, if you want to check out more of the stuff we talked about today, go visit RoleCatcher's website. They have tons of resources. You never know, it might be the thing that sparks your next career move. That's it for us this time. Keep those brains fired up, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.